Hi, I'm Super Center, and today we're going to be going over an update of my SOG impression. So I just wanted to do this mainly to kind of show new things I got. 1, 2, to talk about the future of this impression, and 3, because I'm kind of stalling until I can get my newer impressions done, and that way I can get those out to y'all. I do have some cool new impressions. I do have a really cool new video I'm planning to do. Hopefully that will can be as good as I want it to be. That should be early November. And otherwise, I am getting some new impressions that should hopefully be fun and not just updates of old impressions. So, but yeah. Anyways, this is going to be like, newest things. So we're going to go over the history of SOG a bit. I've got some new information that I kind of learned about SOG in this unit specifically that I want to talk about as well. So, SOG, or as a part of MACV-SOG, which is Military Assistance Command Vietnam Studies and Observations Group. MACV and SOG are kind of separate. SOG was the actual kind of ground troops, while MACV was more of the advising and of the army and doing more of the actual technical paperwork and all that fun jazz, while SOG was the actual, recon group. So MacVSog, what they did was they went deep into enemy territory to do highly deep reconnaissance. They were very quiet in their operations, and they did very lucrative operations as well. And so we'll go a little bit more into that when we get to the actual impression. They also handled a lot of combat. SOG had a 100% casualty rate, which means all of their members were either shot or killed. And almost a lot of the survivors of SOG have like 5 to 7 purple hearts. It's ridiculous. But they went really deep in enemy lines, doing really deep reconnaissance, specifically on the Ho Chi Minh Trail in Laos and Cambodia. So they were places they shouldn't have been, but they were special forces, secret operators, all that fun stuff. So it's a really cool history. If you want to learn more, because obviously I don't know the most, there's two places I highly recommend to get your information. On Spotify, you can go to SOGcast. SOGcast is amazing. They do fantastic interviews with SOG veterans going over the history of SOG. And then if you want to see these members while they're being interviewed and get some photos and some more information, and if you want to ask questions and get them answered by the vets, you can go to Reconnaissance Cast on YouTube. He's fantastic. He does an amazing job. I haven't been watching some of his videos recently, which I really wish I did, but I've been busy with college. But he's fantastic. I love the work he does, and you get some amazing stories from these SOG veterans. Just some crazy stories. But yeah. So before we get into this, this is nowhere near complete, obviously. The SOG carried so much stuff on them. I'll put up some photos if I can find them of a guy who I know who also does SOG, but he has a lot of money. And he has bought almost all the stuff SOG member would carry. And it's ridiculous how he's even gotten his hands on some of these things. But yeah. Obviously, I don't have the money for that. And I also don't have the ability to get all that. So this is mainly just an impression that will look good from the outside, not really all of the inside details, sadly. But also, I probably will never get all of those things, and I don't know if I'm really going to change this impression much, as it's not what I'm focusing on at the moment. Although there are some things I would kind of like to change, but yeah. Anyways, let's get into it. So first things first, we have my jungle fatigues. These are Hessen and Teak reproductions. I am probably going to end up getting smaller reproductions because these are mediums, but I do not fit a medium. I fit a small regular. I planned, because I thought I was going to be bigger. I'm still growing, so who knows, but I don't think I'm going to grow to a medium. But I will probably get smaller ones and spray paint them again. And that's one of the biggest things. You can see how, I don't know, it's kind of hard to see, but you can see the spray paint. It's a blackish brown spray paint, and it's kind of like in a vine pattern. And this was the self-painted camouflage that they put on their standard jungle fatigues until they could get other camos. But most SOG members really didn't use camos. The indigenous members of SOG did, a lot of times tiger stripe, but a lot of actual SOG members really didn't use like ERDL or tigers. Some did, most of the times they didn't. They just went in with their army, their patterns. You see no patches on it, and that is because, again, they are doing lucrative operations, and so they cannot have any identification on them. They didn't even carry dog tags. SOG was, again, like I said, very lucrative, and so you could not be identified by the enemy. But it also made it a little difficult when they were interacting with other American units, especially on bases with the chain of command. They would get pestered because they have no identification. So there's some fun stories about that on SOGcast and on Reconnaissance Cast. So I do highly recommend to go watch those. They tell them way better than I do. Then we have trousers as well. Then we just have standard third pattern jungle boots. These are my reproductions from Moors that I need to polish because I haven't polished them in like 2 months and I don't want them to crack. So I'll do that after this video. But yeah, but I think, you know, looks good. Got the wear and tear on them. Got some USGI socks, t-shirt. Gators are not specifically like other SOG teams. I'm specifically trying to portray RT Texas or Recon Team Texas. Go figure. You know what? I didn't bring the patch out here, but that's fine. I do actually have I don't think it's original, but I think it's a reproduction. I do have a RT Texas patch, which they would have had on their, I put a photo of it, but they did put that on their Garrison fatigues. But it's not really for this. Gators were something that some RT Texas members wore. Not all, but some did. The squad leader, John Good, did actually wear some for a little bit. I have one photo of an indigenous member wearing them. And some guys did wear them, so it's not like it wasn't like the most common, but it did happen. We have a grenade vest. This is a Grenadier impression, and they use the grenade vest. Being special forces, they kind of got like the newest stuff before really anybody, and so the grenade vest was really widely used by SOG members. I will note that I am portraying an American member of SOG. There was a lot of indigenous, known as Montagnards or mountain people, who were part of SOG, and they typically would actually wear more native Vietnamese uniforms and equipment. Not really equipment, but uniforms. So they would have had, a lot of times you see them, especially in 69s, 70, which is what I'm portraying here, you'd see a lot of them with the native South Vietnamese tiger stripe uniforms. But also, and their equipment also would have looked a little differently with being indigenous, of course, being smaller and not really being able to hold as much, but it just kind of depended. But the grenade vest they did use. I have some photos of them wearing them, and it's pretty cool. For headgear, for garrison, off-duty stuff, we have obviously the green beret, as these are the green berets for the special forces. I do need to shape mine better, but I did my best of my ability. And then I have just a triangle bandage, which they would have used along with many other headgear items. One I do want to get is what's called a SISO booty. SISO was a company in Japan that made a lot of stuff for SOG specifically. Because again, SOG was not going to be, identified with like the United States Army and stuff like that, and so they tried to get away from U.S. equipment as much as they kind of could. But since the South Vietnamese were also being supplied by the U.S., it wasn't too far off to have, U.S. equipment. But they wanted to be distant from the U.S. government, and so CISO supplied stuff like boonie hats, the rucksack, and some other pieces of equipment like watches and other things to help kind of differentiate them from being U.S. soldiers. You could also see black pieces of headgear, pieces of cloth being used. I'm using a triangle bandage just because it's all I have. I do really want a CISO boonie. They're really hard to find reproductions of. My squad lead for the group does actually have one, and I'm really jealous because it's really cool and I really want one. He was really lucky to get it, but I would want one because that's actually what most SOG members from the photos I have actually are wearing. I do see some with the triangle bandage, or another piece of cloth for either like a simple bandana or what's essentially a do-rag. But that is not totally that common. Mainly it's just a boonie, so I really would like that. The boonies were made black. You also will see some soldiers wear completely dyed black fatigues, especially for like pointmen, and this was to kind of confuse the VC and NVA, and when they saw them, of course, were all black and with a black boonie, well, they kind of look like VC, and so it would trick the Vietnamese, North Vietnamese, from seeing them as enemies. For the equipment, it kind of ranges, to be honest. This is a pretty kind of ish standard equipment. This is more honestly what a American equipment set. The Vietnamese, from the photos I have, really didn't actually carry a crap ton on their equipment. But this is kind of a general equipment set for a Grenadier, specifically RT Texas. There were some SOG groups that actually spray painted their equipment as well, which I think is one of the, well, they did in World War II as well. I was about to say it's one of the first moments of camouflaged equipment, but no, they did that in World War II in the Pacific. But they carried that over as well with the SOG. So for the equipment, I have a second pattern belt, and then I have 5 canteen covers. I have, I think, 2 second patterns and 3 first patterns. RT Texas specifically used a lot of canteen pouches. There are some photos of them using ammo pouches, but most of them are using canteen pouches because you can shove more 20 rounders in there. And for Grenadier, you can shove your 40mm rounds. My middle one is holding grenades, which could have been done. And then I have a jungle first aid kit, which a lot of SOG members did have. I don't think every single one did, to my knowledge, but that was seen. And this is an original one that I got. It is stated 67, and it does have most of the original contents, which is awesome. We have a Hansen rig, which I just have on the belt. Could also probably be, I might actually attach it to the belt itself instead of on its suspender, because that's kind of awkward, to be honest. And I have seen, you see these a lot. And these are for your extraction systems. And so you would attach it through your carabiners on your suspenders and other parts of your web gear to attach to a helicopter extraction cord to lift yourself up and out of a situation. That way the helicopter doesn't have to land. The other one I have is a Swiss seat, which is one of the older ones that they did use, which is literally just a piece of rope that you can use as extraction. Some standard infantry actually got their hands on these and would use them as just ropes for general rope usage, but the Hansen rig tends to be pretty much only SOG from what I've seen. But yeah, and then the most common thing you see is a stable rig, but I do not have them because reproductions are very expensive, but they are out there. And that would replace the suspenders, and that is like the best suspension system or extraction system, because instead of having to take a big thing and uncoil it and attach it to yourself, you literally just hook in. It is a beautiful piece of extraction system that I don't have, sadly, but that was actually, especially at this time that I'm trained, the most common extraction system used by SOG. I also have a 1911 with holster with a 1911. I don't really know if SOG guys and Grenadiers carried them. I know SOG guys did carry sidearms on them. Not all of them, but some did. And Grenadiers were supposed to be issued them. However, I haven't really seen many photos of it, but it's possible. Highly possible. And so I do carry that. Although, if not, there would be another canteen pouch carrying more ammunition or grenades. So like the first two are carrying 40mm ammunition. I have some 3D printed ones in there. And then my second one's carrying grenades. And then, of course, our canteens. I have a XM28 gas mask. This is an original gas mask bag. This was just kind of used to carry personal items. It wasn't actually used to carry the gas mask. The first aid pouch, which is taped with green tape. And then we have a USAF survival knife. This is actually a late war, like a really late war, like 70s one because of the metal tip, but the ones with the leather for the earlier style are really hard to find, but that is an original one. I think it stayed 74 on the knife. So pretty cool. And we have carabiners, which again are how you would extract yourself. For the ruck, I have a really bad Sissa ruck. This is not actually a Sissa ruck. This is a Rothko rucksack from Amazon, but my squad leader took it, dyed it, and spray painted it to make it look as much like a scissor ruck as possible, because it really does actually look like a scissor ruck. However, there are some minor differences. I don't truly know because I have not done too much research into the actual scissor ruck. My squad leader actually did get a reproduction scissor ruck, which is fantastic. For I want one so bad, but you know, and it's good that he got it. But I really want one myself. But yeah, so fake scissor ruck, but it looks the part, so which is nice. And of course, last but not least is the M79. And even by 6970, they are actually still using a lot of them are still using the M79. The M204, right? Yeah, M204 underbarrel grenade launcher was not fully used yet. The M79 was still pretty well used. It was being adopted. There are some photos of SOG guys with them, but the M79 seems to be a pretty primary grenade launcher. And one thing to note is they would take off the sights, which some standard infantry did too. But I noticed from the Grenadier photos, also do know a lot of the Grenadiers in RT Texas were Indige members and not actually Americans, but hey ho. but they took off the sights. There's one photo I have where he didn't take off the sights. Of course, also there really should be a sling. A lot of them really did put slings on. I'm still getting a sling for my M79, so still waiting for that. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. So let's go see what it looks like on me. Here's what it looks like on me. Hopefully the microphone's in a better spot than it was the last time because it was way too close to my mouth in my last video, so I'm just still figuring this out. But yeah, this is my kit. Again, there's probably some things I would like to update. I'm definitely going to be one thing that's definitely going to be updated is an actual garrison uniform, because I have the patches installed for it. I just need to get the uniform and then sew the patches on it. But yeah, so this is the kit. One thing I forgot to mention, I don't know how, but I mentioned in the last video, is they took the sights off because it would get snagged on things. It was this big ladder, flip-up ladder sight, and it would get snagged on things in the jungle. So that's why you see them take them off. But yeah, so this is it. We got the equipment. One thing that I am a little still kind of iffy on is if they actually wore the grenade vest under or over the equipment. My squad leader told me under. I have not found true photo evidence of it being either under or over. Most of it I see, it's really hard to tell because it's all from the back. But I found a way that under the equipment it works. Over would probably make a little more sense just because having it over the equipment will, allow you to access the pouches easier. But with all the stuff they carried on their equipment, it might have been under. So, but we'll get that figured out in a later time. But yeah, so here we have the grenade vest, and then over that I have the equipment. So we have my ammo pouches, or my canteen pouches holding 4mm grenades, a canteen pouch for holding actual grenades, 2 canteen pouches in the rear for actual holding canteens, 1911 holster. Like I said, probably going to replace this with another canteen holding more 40mm ammunition. It's probably what I'm going to end up doing. USA survival knife, a first aid pouch taped on. This is also taped on, and then the XM28 gas mask, which I don't actually have anything in. And I can actually still shoulder my gun with it in there. I know technically you're not supposed to put anything there, but you do see them put stuff here. I probably should end up moving this, and I might. My equipment might change depending, because I have seen photos of them with maybe less stuff in the front, so that might be something I do. I'm just going to kind of have to wait and see, but I am happy with this equipment setup and how it looks. We have the Swiss seat and my Hansen rig, which I actually did kind of move, but it's the same spot, just I attach it to something a little different, just so it's not pulling on that strap, it's actually on the clip. And then the ruck. And what's interesting, this is another thing I forgot to mention, you don't really see them put anything on the rucksack. I can't remember if that's in video, I'm going to speak later. But from all the photos I've seen, you don't see really anything on the rucksack, which is complete stark contrast to standard infantry. The only things you'll see are probably smoke grenades. You do sometimes see like the Swiss seat through it. Same thing with standard infantry if they have a Swiss seat. You'll also see some ropes and sometimes some other things tucked underneath the top flap, but that's usually not actually the most common. A lot of times it's pretty much nothing. Got the gaiters over my jungle boots and my pants. Then we have my third pattern bandage. I kind of like this one. I don't know if I'm really going to change it. Boonie would be more correct, but I don't know where I'm going to get Sisso Boonie. I mean, I could just get a USGI one and dye it black, which is also something we did. But we'll see. For right now, I like how this looks, and it is technically correct. Another thing that you'll notice is my sleeves are down. A lot of times with units that have camo, like the Marines, if they had camo, a lot of times, and SOG especially, in combat, you'll see most of the time they actually have their sleeves down. There's also one, insects, too. you actually get you camouflage more. Instead of showing off the bright skin, you're actually camouflaging more into your environment, which is what you want. Although you do see some guys roll up their sleeves. One thing also I'm going to be doing is replacing these original gaiters with reproduction gaiters and getting them spray painted just like the uniform as they should be. But for right now, I do not have my repro gaiters. But yeah, this impression is still technically a work in progress, although I'm very happy with how it looks. I think it looks perfectly fine, and I'm perfectly happy to take this to any event and show it off. There are some things I will tweak and make a little more accurate, but besides that, that's pretty much it, because I'm not going to get in all those personal items. That would be an absolute nightmare and way too much money that I do not have. So, but yeah, anyways, thank y'all for watching, and I'll see you next time.